My guest is Mike Jenkins. So, in your own words, who is Mike and what is the purpose of your work?
So, yeah, well, first of all, it's really great to be joining with you. And we should probably say as well that when I first spoke to you on that first podcast interview that
Yeah.
we did back
Yeah.
in November, we kind of had the idea for these conversations.
Right.
And so we'll be talking, about that as we go along. But so for anyone who doesn't know me, my name's Mike Jenkins. In 2010, I started writing a blog about my spiritual experiences. And before that, I was very deliberately seeking for some kind of relief, freedom actually from
Right.
feelings.
Right.
So I think that's relevant to our conversation because the reason that I was seeking in that way, I wanted to be free from difficult feelings. I'd suffered in my 20s. I had some mental health problems when I was a student. My 20s were very difficult. I worked as hard as I could, but nothing ever really went smoothly for me. And in my late 20s and through my early 30s, I was dealing with a diagnosis of cancer. So those were years that were physically challenging as well as emotionally and mentally and everything else. So all of those experiences really, like they do for millions of people, all around the world, we as humans, we don't seem to be able to avoid inevitable suffering. And some people suffer intensely, and in ways that you and I just can't contemplate, and others suffer less so. But it does seem to be, like the Buddha says, life is suffering. There's no escape from that. And so those years that I was writing the blog and going to teachers and reading hundreds of spiritual books and trying different spiritual techniques and well-being techniques, and so I was trying everything, but I realized that I was trying all of that because I wanted to feel less pain.
Yeah.
I wanted to feel free from either
Mm.
the feeling of either free from the feeling of wanting and craving, like that feeling that nothing's quite right, there's something missing, I've got to change my job, I've got to change my relationship, I've got to change my body, I need more money, or I need less money, or I need to live in a different part of the world, or actually it's nothing to do with me, other people need to change, my
Right. Right.
family, my mother, my children, my husband, my wife, they all need to change. I'm fine, it's actually the politicians need to change. So whatever it is, we all experience discomfort, on many different levels. And so I think that for lots of people, that is where a spiritual search can begin. And
Mm.
it was. And so much of that early experience for me, particularly with meditating as well, which we'll come on to, because that's really what I do at the moment, is I share present moment meditations with people, and I simply guide them and myself through a few short meditation techniques rather, which lots of other teachers have shared. In particular, Eckhart Tolle talks about silence and stillness and space, and I use that a lot in my guided meditations. And then I also talk about awareness of awareness. However, when I first started to encounter those teachings, I was listening to them from the point of view of, oh yes,
Right.
this is the key to
Right.
freedom.
Yeah.
And there was a part of like our sort of egocentric,
Mm.
separate self listens in on that, and it makes a deal with ourselves and says, yeah, well,
Right.
if I put in all these hours of spiritual practice, if I
Right.
go to that teacher, if I read that book,
Yeah.
I will reach my idea of enlightenment. And usually that means I'll feel better,
Right.
or I won't feel the things that make me feel bad, but I will feel the things that make me feel good. So I'll feel more blissful. And all of that's true. We can experience all of those things. It's just that, like you say, and I love the way you introduced it, is that there actually is no escape for us.
Mm.
The job of being a divine spiritual being is happening here in
Mm.
our human bodies. This is where we work it all out. And I think that you're right, that is beautiful, because in the end,
Yeah.
we actually don't really want to be free from our human suffering. We actually just want to
Mm.
navigate it better. We want to rely on the deeper part of our being, the deeper aspect of who we are,
Right.
to dance with it, So
Mm.
I think what I've found is that certainly through these practices, that there is an aspect of who we are that is already perfectly okay with the hardest feelings.
Mm,
It's already accepted them, and it's not. It can't be destroyed by them. It can't be hurt by them. And that ultimate aspect of who we are, divine emptiness, or we could call it emptiness. We could call it Buddha nature. We could call it the Tao. We could call it the now. We could call it
uh,
anything, non-dual reality, pure potentiality.
yeah.
That can't actually die, and it can't be born. It just is. So I think that's what's interesting about that journey for me, is that I was seeking really to escape the feelings that were problematic for me.
Right.
But the irony is, the only escape really is right into them.
Mm,
We were talking about that. So it's actually okay. Yes, it's okay to feel all this stuff,
mm,
because it's not actually just me that feels it.
mm,
There is something more here than just me. There
right.
is non-dual reality. There is Buddha nature. There is silence. There's not only feelings here, there's also the consciousness that is aware of the feelings, which means that there is awareness and feelings. They're appearing together and
Mm,
disappearing together. And somehow, when
mm,
we experience that in our bodies and we feel it, it seems to actually heal and make those experiences easier to bear.
easy to bear, right? And that was just came to me when listening to you about this idea of coming from that untouched, uncreated us. Then it's almost like it feels like that's where freedom really is, but it's not really freedom from feelings.
No.
So that's such a paradox. um,
Mm,
so what would you say for those who are going, they are in the midst of their suffering and they are
mm.
embracing every feeling as if they were not just real, because they are real,
They are
but
real, relatively, yeah.
yeah. So I just wonder how even for me, like I have this understanding, which seems to be um, an ongoing kind of deepening experience, right,
Mm,
Mike?
yeah,
It's not really, it's not a destination, although it was never, it never started, and it doesn't have a middle, and it doesn't have an end. So it's
yeah.
so I wonder for those who are suffering right now, they're going
Mm.
through, yeah, difficult feelings. How did they? What would you tell them, like in this moment?
Yeah, if I was, face to face with someone and they were sharing something that they were feeling, obviously it would depend on the context and what's actually happening.
Right.
So in some instances, I don't know. I mean, if I was faced with
Mm,
somebody who was in the street and they were, it was a very severe, like they were injured, or you're in a way, those are kind of theoretical. You don't know how you're going to react until in the moment. However, if
right.
someone's saying to me, look, I just can't cope with these feelings. I mean, that's quite a common experience in our modern
Right.
world. We feel
Right.
overwhelmed. We've all experienced kind of simultaneous experiences of feeling overwhelmed, confused, uncertain with the experience of the pandemic.
Yeah.
But those feelings are quite common to us anyway. We felt them during childhood. So I think the main thing I would say is, well, um, that's okay. First of all,
Yeah.
like, is it okay to feel like that? Like, who says that you're not allowed to feel like that? It's okay to feel that way.
Right.
And secondly, is there something here in your own experience that is aware of how you feel, and therefore is that awareness suffering that in that way? So first of all, I might say, well, what is it? Name the feeling. So
Yeah.
explore it.
Yeah.
What's it look like? Witness it. Look at it. Is it fluttering anxiety? Has it got a shape? What might you call it? It's nervousness, or it's
Yeah.
fear or panic, or I just can't drop certain. There might be thoughts that come up, repetitive, whatever it is. But after a while, we can notice that we have the ability to stand outside of it and
Mm,
to
yeah.
name it, observe it, look at it. So
Yeah.
really, it's about coming to recognize that there's a part of you and a part of me that can see what we're feeling, can witness it, can be aware of it. And if we spend more time simply just looking at our ability to be aware, which is
Mm,
why I take people
mhm,
through silence meditation, because that's not so wordy, and you know, we can just say, oh, listen.
mm,
And in that listening, there's usually a feeling as well, just dropping down, a sense of just being here, breathing,
mm.
you know, the feeling of the body, just sensation of here and now,
Yes. I
you
love
know.
that. Yeah.
And
Mm,
so
yeah.
what I think I have found helpful is to make the connection that vast empty space or pure silence, which seems to be able to hold anything,
Yeah. Yeah.
is actually, I think it's the same dimension as our awareness, or it certainly
Mm,
seems to have very similar characteristics,
right.
because anything seems to be free to come and to go
Right.
in silence.
Mm,
It's
mm,
got this sort of unconditional. So in the silence, we can make lovely sounds, beautiful choirs, nice music, and we can make unpleasant sounds, the sound
right.
of cars screeching or sirens. They seem to be free to come and go. The silence itself doesn't seem to be marked by those
Mm.
sounds. It seems actually completely just as it was before they came and after they've gone.
My God, I love that.
You know,
It is so true. Yeah,
so
so
I
true.
kind of, in a way, I
Yeah.
try and point people,
Mm,
and this is only because it's worked for me, and it's, you know, there are lots and lots of really great writers who probably do this far better than me, and some great teachers. But in a way, it's like we can understand it conceptually, but
right,
when we feel and we know it by being it. It's
right,
like something drops, and we start to realize, we become more and more trusting and familiar with the fact that, oh right, actually it never really goes anywhere.
right.
That awareness, I mean, we call it awareness, it's really simply there's something in our own conscious experience of this moment that is at the same time experiencing what we feel and simultaneously free in it. Like you
Mm,
say, it's
yeah,
freedom in all these things. There's a
yeah.
sense of, well, the core of what I am isn't actually suffering.
Mm,
It's witnessing the suffering.
mm,
And so somehow that's freer, and seems more manageable than, well, all there is here is just this pain and suffering, which for some people that is their experience, and we can't deny it. That's just how they're experiencing reality at that moment. But we all know that almost everybody I've ever met has had those moments when the only thing they're aware of is intense, restriction or suffering or pain.
yeah.
And so that's our reality in that moment. And those moments are horrible. We've all had them, you know.
True.
And then, as our grandmothers said to us, time is a great healer. Give it some space,
Yeah,
give it some time. And
right.
it seems to be that these dimensions that aren't really very, the dimension of space is not particularly esoteric. It's in every room we're in. There's
Mm,
space around the objects
yeah,
outside of the room. It's actually very ordinary.
yeah. So true. I
Mm,
love the way you describe that. Like the first thing that caught my attention in your teachings when we talked for the first time, it was the silence when you
mm,
described, when you use silence as a metaphor for
mm,
consciousness, for this undescribable, nameless
mm,
reality that we
mm,
that we can access, but at the same time we can't. It's such a beautiful paradox. So what I wonder is that because of the body, Mike, that we have the experience of time and space, and also the The fear. There's a lot of fear that comes with the attachment to the body, right? That this idea that we are the body. So would
Mm.
you say that the anchor to this reality that it's not real per se would be the body, and fear is the let's say the carrier of that reality that keeps kind of perpetuating itself. From what I heard, it keeps coming back in a sense of in a new body, mind continuation, and all. So is that the reason why this reality exists? Because we are not ending fear here now.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I don't actually know. I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
But what I do know is that fear comes and goes. You know,
Right.
it's part of the deal. It comes and goes, and so. But the important thing to hear there is that it goes. You
Yeah.
know,
All
and it
right.
seems to be that. So yeah, maybe this sense of being, solid. We're in our bodies. What I do think is that our kind of practiced conditioning of the actual practice of being a separate egocentric self.
Mm,
I mean, egocentricity is I think best described as the feeling experience of feeling that I am at the center of the world.
right. Right.
That I'm it's egocentricity, it's at the center. So the feeling of I'm at the center of the world and everything is happening around me.
Right. Right.
That seems that when we act from that perspective,
Mm,
we do act from fear.
right. Right.
Because if I'm here and the world's happening around me, then it's happening to me,
Right.
and it's like I've got to control it, I've got to manage it, like it's all whereas I think when we simply listen to this moment, when we stop thinking, I mean, another way that people practice this with particular techniques are mantras or ways to just calm, to just allow the mind to like quieten down, then we seem to sort of merge with the now. We seem to realize we may not even notice it. I mean, I think most people spend quite a bit of time in present moment awareness. They're simply just not consciously
Right.
aware, but they are experiencing the benefits, because they're more relaxed, riding a bike, doing the dishes, driving a car, walking, staring out the window, listening to music, daydreaming. You're kind of in those moments, you've stopped thinking so much, you're just being,
Yeah.
you're just bumbling along, and so therefore your body's more relaxed, you benefit from all of that much more. Like when we sleep at night, when we're in that
Yeah.
deep or dream state or deep sleep, then we're benefiting from no longer feeling like we're this tight ball of stuff at the center of the universe, you
Right.
know. Um, so so I think it's certainly something to do with that, and that
Mm,
simply noticing that we're appearing alongside the silence and that everything's happening now, it can have the effect, I think, of decentralizing and dislodging
mm,
egocentricity, so that we actually start to recognize, well, I'm not the center of the universe, actually. And that's quite an intelligent way to live, because then we're in more communion with those around us. We're more in touch with, you know, we're more in touch with spiritual wisdom,
right.
you know. So yeah, I think that there it's related, that feeling of constriction and, and time actually. I mean, I suppose it is, because when we're lost in a daydream, or we're sitting in silence and we're just
Mm,
very still, our perception of time changes. You
right.
know,
It
so
does.
like
Yeah.
we all have that experience, don't we? That when there's not very much happening, 5 minutes can seem like a really long time.
That's
But it
true.
seems to be when there's lots of things happening in a short space of time, and there's
Yeah.
probably a very good physics answer to it, or so, I don't know, but
Yeah.
there's that phrase, a week is a long time in politics.
Mm, yeah.
I think that's because so
Makes-
much happens, so
yeah.
many big events happen in
Yeah.
the political world in 1 week. It seems like it's a year's gone by. And these days, it's like times a million,
Yeah.
So I think that our perception of time does change based on our point of focus. So in a way, I think you're right. I'm just not sure I can describe it very
Mm,
well.
Yeah. Right. Thank you for your honesty. So another question is that comes to me is this idea of freedom. Is that something that is it's a practice? It sounds like it's a practice to me.
Well, maybe.
Right?
I
Like,
mean, yeah, maybe it is. But again, it depends what we mean by the word practice. I mean,
mm,
it's essentially it's something we do over and over again.
right,
Um,
right.
I guess I would describe freedom as just something that's happening.
Mm,
It seems to be that freedom is what's happening when we're not doing very much.
right.
Like it just is. You know.
Everything
Um,
is free already. Right.
yeah, almost like you could describe that that primary identity of ourselves, the what we are before we're a body is freedom,
Yeah.
you
Mm,
know. And so therefore there must be an aspect of us that is also freedom. So I
right.
might say that freedom
Mm,
is taking form in this moment as Mike and as Valeria. It's taking form as all the objects. Freedom's doing that
mm,
simultaneously, all at
right.
once,
Right.
right now.
Wow.
So it's almost like freedom is what is, and
Yeah.
we are appearing and disappearing in that freedom.
That's beautiful. So everything appears and disappears, right? And what comes to you as an answer, or what insights have you gained into why why this is? Because it doesn't have to be, right? The conditioned body and mind that is not free, but the
Mm.
aspects of us that are not free. Do you ever ask that question? Like, how did this come to be? Why this is? Why the conditionings are?
Well, I have asked that question,
Yeah,
and I think we can come up with different theories,
true.
um, and
Yes.
different kind of ideas about it. I think ultimately we can't really know.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
I mean, we might say, what, it's a bit like why is anything happening at all? Why does emptiness turn up as universes and create? It's like, well, I don't know. It seems to. I mean, one theory might be that it's just another way to play the creation to play. It seems that
Mm,
I mean, there are other people that might say that
mm,
the humans are having this experience in order to expand
yeah.
um, reality, and and that all of it is really an experiment in evolution. But it
Yeah.
seems it can also be an experiment in devolution. It doesn't
Mm,
necessarily have to
mm,
go one way.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think that I don't think it's wrong to have theories or ideas about that. I just sort of think, well, if it's helpful, and I find it interesting to talk about. It's like
It's me
metaphysics,
too.
really. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, but
Yeah.
in a way, it's like communing with the spirit world or manifesting, or it's like, well, we can do all that, but is it serving us,
Mm,
right now? Is it actually is that any different to
mm,
playing cricket or watching Netflix? I mean, it's like, is it
yeah.
serving us right now? And some of that is,
Mm,
some of those activities are of great service to us and to others. And
right.
some of them, I think, can be just as much a distraction as worrying about what the stock market's doing, or, thinking, is my hair looking all right? It's like some of it can be a distraction, I think, and some of
Yeah.
it isn't.
Right. That's a very good answer. So it's to ask those big questions. They are very entertaining to me. Like I love reflecting upon them and having
Mm,
conversations.
mm,
I love that for some reason. But yeah, when it goes back to the idea of freedom related to conditionings, then has to do with practice, being in the moment, which takes practice, and it takes um, that's another paradox because it takes effort, right, Mike? Would you say
well,
that? Right,
seemingly so, yeah. I think you could say that on the one hand, it does take effort. It does take an intention, if you like. But
right.
the paradox is that it might take an intention for us to just stop and look. But funny
Mm,
enough, when we just stop
mm,
and we're just being, that's effortless.
Yeah.
When we just notice that, well, perhaps what I want or need, is it already happening?
Yeah.
Is
Love
is
that.
it already here? It
Yeah.
seems that that's the moment when we realize, oh, well, that
Mm,
itself didn't take any effort at all because it's already happening.
right.
So it is a
Yeah.
paradox, but it's like we were saying last time. We do practice things in our daily life. If you think of practice as just something you do over and over again,
Right.
I mean, I still have plenty of bad habits that I do over and over again,
Yeah.
and they're not necessarily very good for me.
Right.
But
Right.
I've just got into a habit of repeating them. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
Whereas there are
Mm,
certain ways of thinking and being that I don't do so much anymore, so therefore I don't have the negative effects of them. So for
right.
example, my response to anxiety or fear is different now than it was when I was in my 20s.
Right.
So I kind of rely on
Yeah.
a kind of deeper wisdom, which I don't really think of as my wisdom.
Good.
It's like, well, if it was down to me, I'd probably screw it up. But actually, I recognize that there's an aspect of me that is, an aspect of you and me that knows far better than I do. You know,
Mm, mm,
and there are times. I mean, I grew up in not a very strict Catholic family, but I did grow up in a with being taught about God and Jesus and the Bible, and went to
yeah.
a school where we went to mass each week.
Yeah.
So I did grow up with that. So sometimes it feels comfortable for me to say, or to ask God,
Yeah.
or ask Jesus, and so, and I've got Buddha statues in my home. I seek the guidance of Buddha, or I ask archangels. I might ask a dead relative to guide me in any moment. Those things feel comfortable to me. But then it's like, well, if that's so, I'd say to others, if that feels meaningful to you, then do that, because there seems to be actually a relief when we're like, oh, actually,
Mm,
yeah, thank God it's not all down to me, because it
yeah.
allows us to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
fallible and human, to
Yeah.
sort of accepting that if I alone, can't
Mm,
handle a lot of the difficulty of life,
mm,
but actually
yeah.
these
Mm,
years of practice, and the reason I say returning to it is because when I first noticed this, it felt really powerful in the moment, but
mm,
then I'd get sucked back into identifying too much with suffering, too much with my ideas about things, my stories about things, and getting trapped in it, and then reacting to it. This is a nightmare. This is a nightmare. Why won't it ever get better? When's it going to improve?
yeah.
And it's like, so I
True.
kept realizing, I kept thinking, well, how can it be really free 1 minute and then the next minute? And I think it was simply because I kept forgetting,
Yeah.
I kept forgetting that, well, hang on a minute, actually,
Mm,
maybe maybe it's more okay than I think, and so that
mm,
repeated practice simply, and I've just, I just do it whenever I get lost, and I
right.
still get lost in thought and feeling now. I think it's really hard not to. That we're all part of this. The teacher Adyashanti has a brilliant phrase where he talks about the vortex of suffering.
Mm,
And he says, and sometimes that vortex can turn so powerfully on a planet, on our planet, that actually even really, really practiced meditators and people who are really skilled at
wow.
staying can get caught up in that, because collectively, we're all here together. So I think it's quite comforting to hear that, because, you
Right.
know, we can
Right.
so often but think that we're not doing so well because, oh, I still get caught up in feelings. Well, actually, yeah, but that's all right, because we're still in a body.
Right. And everything's connected, as you said. There's this
Mm,
interconnectedness. Um,
mm.
you said something powerful. Yeah, the idea of control, that we have control of our own lives, that we are here doing this alone, and yeah, is that part of that egocentric kind of reality where we are in the center of the world and everything's happening around
Yeah,
us?
yeah, I think so. And it's also, it's the human story, it's the human condition.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's not such a radical idea. I mean, most people would actually prefer to believe that
yeah,
than to believe that they're not in control.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's where those people are at that time. I think if most of us went to our doctor or our clinician and said, I actually feel fine because I realize that I'm not in control of anything, the
Mhm.
doctor might go, are you sure you're all right? But it's,
Yeah.
but then you can go to a priest and say that and say,
Yeah.
I feel such a relief because it's not down to me. The priest will say, that's wonderful because it's down to God. So much of this is just about paradigms and language and context and, so yeah, I mean, I think for me, what I think is the most important thing at this stage in my experience, and why I think it's so good that you're doing this series of conversations about the freedom to feel,
Right.
is that like it's okay for us to be a
Mm.
human mess.
Mm.
We put so much pressure on ourselves
Yes.
as people to be perfect, to be, to do all the right things. And it's like, well, it's okay to, to suffer, to get it wrong. It's okay to be confused or frightened, in the same way that we would say to children,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
good kind of
Yeah.
nurturing parent would say, well, that's all right. It's okay. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. The feelings will go away. You don't need, it's all right.
That's true.
It's almost like that. That's the feeling I get from silence. I sit in silence or I notice space. It's got that free aspect of, the ability to stand back and witness. But the deeper part of it is really very, very loving.
Yeah. True.
It's unconditionally accepting, it's unconditionally loving. And it just seems to consistently exude, it's okay. There's nothing I can't hold for you. There's nothing that can harm me, and
Yeah.
that's kind of really, I think it's healthy. I think it's when we can begin to feel love in
Yeah.
our cells, in our body. We can feel the emotion, the movement, the word emotion I think means disturbance, but actually when we feel lovely feelings, like when we put our arms around someone we love, or we stroke a pet,
Yeah.
science already knows that chemically, in terms of our nervous system, it's really healthy.
Yeah.
And so, we've all spent such a lot of time feeling isolated. And
Right.
the reason I started sharing these on Zoom is because I wanted to connect with others in that field
Yeah.
of connected, open, unconditional now acceptance, love, that's not the love that preferences or decides, like, I approve of. It's like the love that just kind of allows all of this stuff to be.
My God, I love that. Yeah, it just resonates true. It's yeah, it can be felt.
Mm.
So we're almost at the end. Wow, you went by really fast. So another question I have for you is about meditation. Can that be, can the practice of meditation happen in motion? Like some call it active meditation, or the way
Yeah,
you teach
yeah,
this?
I
Yeah.
think it can. And so my teacher who taught me much of what I know was a teacher called Frances Bennett, and she sadly passed away in January. But she said, and I think many other teachers would say, that surrender, allowing things to be, flowing through life, surrender is meditation in action.
Ah, wow.
That's like,
Huh.
so we can have formal meditation practice where we are, in a way, we're sharpening our skills to recognize
Mm,
unconditional openness, or we're recognizing witness consciousness. We
wow.
can deliberately sit and go, okay, so today I'm going to sit for 10 minutes and I'm just going to notice and just going to listen to silence. In a way, we're developing our familiarity. We're returning again and again and again. And so it's
Mm,
almost like we sharpen our skills in that way, so
mm,
that when we go out into the world and we come across a situation which would be very much, aided by an open-hearted approach,
right.
that we're actually, if the theory goes that you practice enough, that then it becomes the most obvious way to respond.
Mm.
You know, a bit like
Yeah.
if you practice self-defense,
Makes
you know,
sense.
you go to classes and you practice self-defense,
Yeah.
and then you've got that those movements in your body. You've got the physical. You've got the physical memory in your body. If someone comes at you, then your first reaction is going to be, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like it's that sense, I think, so that we practice, so that yes, so that then life is our meditation. That
Mm.
actually life is the meditation. And some teachers say, I think this is a wonderful phrase of saying it, that we can realize that
Mhm.
life is meditated. We are life's meditation. We are
Mm.
we are the meditation of God. It's just being itself
Mm.
through us, you know, which is that's
Mm.
really lovely when we feel the reality of that. It's mind blowing. It's like, wow, yeah,
Yeah.
you know, what a great thing that life's meditating by being all of this.
Right.
We are life's meditation. The world is life's meditation. So in that sense, I think we can take that practice into the world, and then it's just our way of being. You know, we're just being that way. And I think that's something that naturally then arises from, you know, surrender.
Yeah.
I like to call it surrender, but we could call it allowing, you know, wisdom to flow. I
Yeah.
think then all of those great qualities that are in all of the brilliant spiritual traditions of compassion and kindness and forgiveness and, you know, expressions of love
Yeah.
and care and all of that sort of thing, they seem to arise naturally
Yeah.
from that state. So if we encounter somebody that's suffering, our compassionate heart is feels called to assist in some way, to help, to heal, you know, to
Right.
reach out.
What a beautiful message. What's interesting about it's the for the intellect, it tries to kind of separate the
Mm.
ideas. Like, how do I do this? How do I
Yeah, yeah.
right? And surrender. Surrender is that's a big one when it comes to the ego. The idea of the ego that
Mm.
feels separated. To merge back with this meditation of life that you speak of. I love that.
Mm.
I love that.
Mm.
That sounds like the title of your new book. Your next book.
Maybe it is the
That's
meditation of
beautiful. Wow, I love
life.
that.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're almost at the end, but talk to me a bit more about surrender. And you just actually mentioned the signs. Once we have
Mm.
wow, we are dancing that dance with life, emerged back into this this natural stream, natural way of being. Then
Yeah.
kindness, love, everything that
Yeah.
is considered good, kind of arises. So, but how is that something that can be measured in the sense of do we look for that confirmation from the external world, or this is something that we all know, we have that knowledge within, and it doesn't have to be shown, or if you know what I'm trying to
Well,
say.
yeah, I do. So let's try it right now. Okay.
Yes,
So we've
yes.
got, you know, so just
Yeah.
if we just pay attention to what's happening right now. So turn your attention to your breath, just entering and leaving your body, the feeling and sensation of sitting on the chair, thoughts coming and going, feelings in the body, images, the sound of my voice, the silence. Maybe there's a ticking clock or a plane overhead or a dog barking, whatever it is, just noticing what's happening now. It's all coming and going. So there's an aspect of this moment that is already completely surrendered. It's completely open.
Mm,
It's not, the moment itself isn't holding on, doesn't
mm,
need to.
yeah.
So
Mm,
the breath is coming and going, thoughts are coming and going, nothing in our kind of relative experience stays the same. It's
Right.
all in constant flow, some of it's fast, some of it's slow,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
The rock in the garden, or a solid piece of rock, a solid mountain, is moving much, much slower than, the particles in the air, but it's, or dust motes or whatever. But it's still, geologically speaking, I think it's moving. It's the atoms inside of it. So there's nothing that's not freely flowing. And
Mm.
so that's what we can feel and sense, that openness, that clear, empty space. That's surrendered. It's open.
Mm.
It's not holding on.
Right.
So it's beyond really our concepts of surrender or resistance. It's like, well, is there an aspect of this moment that's already completely open
Mm.
and surrendered? Doesn't necessarily mean, I think the concept of surrender we think of as I've got to give up.
Right.
I've got to do that. I've got to give up. I've got to lay down. But actually, it might mean that we stand up and we fight.
Mm.
That might be surrender, because what's happening is that there's an aspect of this moment that is allowing everything to come and go,
Right.
So it might mean that surrender for some people might mean we surrender our passivity. We surrender the patterns of letting people walk all over us.
Mm.
That might be something that we drop in our own development or our own understanding, so
Yeah. Wow. I needed to hear that. Yeah, that's a beautiful message. That's so true. It can be, yeah, it has been always here. It never, how interesting how we try to find the truth. We try to find the answers,
Mm,
and everything, it's here. It's here now. It was never hidden in the first place.
yeah,
How
exactly.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Well,
For,
thank you. And can I just say thank you so much for organizing this.
yeah.
There's, for anyone watching on live or on the replay, there's a lot of work that goes into this, and Valeria's done all of that. So I'm very, very grateful for you for the opportunity to talk to you and to share this with your subscribers and with your on your channels. And I'm just so glad that we met and we've had these exchanges. It's been really, really nice, and
Yeah.
it's been great for me because I've needed to let go of the part of myself that says, oh, I can't do that.
Right.
Who am I to go out there and tell people about things? My life's a complete mess. Why would anyone listen to me?
Oh my God, I love your message. I love the message. It really touched me the day we met and you talked about silence, and it was felt in a profound way. And that's why you're my first guest with this live conversations. You came to me strongly. So thank you.
Thank
And
you.
as for your appreciation, the body appreciates. The body really loves hearing that because it's the only part that sometimes complains, nothing else. And I do have a last question for you, Mike.
Mm.
One that I have thought before. Let me see. Yeah. So before we say goodbye today, uh, what is one message from our conversation that you wish everyone to understand and to take with them for the rest of their lives?
I think that would be there is something here. There is a part of you. There is an aspect of your own being that can hold all the things you think you can't, and that can face all the things that you feel you can't. There's
Mhm.
an aspect of who you are that is already free.
Mm. Yeah. Beautiful. It's so true.
Yeah.
What can I say? So, and what is the best way to be in touch with you to find more about your work and your offerings, your services, besides the Fit for Joy, of course, website?
Besides, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So you can read. The best way really is to through my website, which is heartofpresence.co.uk.
Yeah.
So if you visit that, you can see what I'm doing generally in terms of events or Zoom meetings. I'm also on Facebook. I think the Facebook page is Heart of Presence. And in particular, at the moment, I'm really keen to share with people my 4-part video series, which for some people may be more practical than coming along to the live Zoom events, So the 4 practices that I tend to share with people, I do a weekly meeting group with some people here in the UK. I've shared in person recently at some live events, and once a month, if anyone wants to come along and experience this guided practice, then you can come along on the first Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. UK time. That's free to join. The link is on my website. But if anyone wants to start exploring this practice, then you can purchase the video course. And I go through each video is about maybe 40 minutes long. And I go through those practices in depth: silence, space, stillness, and awareness of awareness. And people then can go at their own pace. They can play it back. And I just suggest to people, do it whenever you've got time. And also, once you've watched the videos or you've been to one of the meetings, then do it when you're sitting, listening to people, sitting on the train, drinking your coffee, walking in the park. Just bring that. It's a perspective, really. I think it's a shift in perspective. And that shift from the perspective of egocentricity to the perspective of pure open-hearted awareness, that shift seems to bring about a change in the way we perceive ourselves, a change in the way that we perceive suffering and life, that is just altogether different to what goes before, which is usually much more pain and resistance, and therefore suffering for everybody, not just us individually, but just look at the world.
Right. So true. I love your work. Thank you so much, Mike, for doing what you do, the way you do it.
And also, we should say as well that anyone who's watching Fit for Joy, we've got a promotion code, a discount code voucher on Valeria's website. So that gives 30% off, I think, the course.
Right. That is fitforjoy.org/freedom to feel. So I'll have that on my the first page of my website too. And I'll be sending to everyone on newsletters. So thank you so much again, Mike. And
Thank you.